Good evening, everyone. Gordon Causey coming to you live tonight. What day are we? We are the 17th of February. Today is Monday, the 17th, month of February. The year is 2025. I say that because sometimes I look back on my old content from a year ago, 2 years ago. It's about 3 years ago. That's about when I started. And I don't always say the date, and it's nice to know because YouTube typically, unless I want to go dig in through the archives, it doesn't tell me automatically bang exactly what date it was. My dog, Candy the Wonder Pup, is always here. Got some news to share with those who participate in the channel, Danny, and anyone else, to invite you to come along for the ride, so to speak. I've got a couple guests coming up, but before I start talking about that, shake, speak, and there you go. Candy has been looked after. I see Danny has shown up, always with the praying hands and the cross. God bless you, my friend. Danny is from Montreal, Montreal. I think you'll be interested in one of the two guests coming, at least. I hope you're interested in both. Um, so, what's coming up is tomorrow in the afternoon, I'm going to be doing a podcast style interview with a friend of mine from the Ottawa Valley, a retired firefighter. His name is Jack. And Jack is was a little reticent to come on. He does not want to do it live. He wants to do it first and then give me the okay. And I respect Jack. So, provided he is okay with the content once we're finished, I will be uploading our talk to the channel. I don't know at this point exactly what we're going to talk about, but I do know some areas where I want to lead the conversation. As I say, Jack is a retired firefighter. When I approached him to come on, we communicate often through Facebook, and he is extremely well read, and he's also got life experience that I think speaks to his ability to have seen through so much of the psychological manipulations that we've gone through. And I think, and I want to explore this with him, is to what degree does having a background like myself in military, or um, or uh, with me with the military, or with him being a firefighter and the exposure to stressful situations, how that might empower a person to maintain a hold on critical thinking skills and to be able to see through deceptive, manipulative machinations that we've all gone through. Uh, and I've got Danny here saying that I should bring up maybe the DEW fires, what many suspect are DEW, directed energy weapon, the fires that took place in Hawaii and then more recently in Los Angeles area. That's Thank you for bringing that up. That one hadn't occurred to me. Uh, and Danny's, saying, how about how everything is burnt and melted, yet for whatever reason, anything that is the color blue, like blue colored roofs and such, buildings painted blue, somehow escape the damage. And that's a worthwhile topic of conversation. Absolutely. I don't know what Jack's opinions are on that. I do know, however, that he has a copy of and has read The Great Reset and possibly even The Fourth Industrial Revolution. These are two books that were co authored by WEF founder and president Klaus Schwab. So I'm very much looking forward to our talk. I want it to be a free flowing conversation, not putting him on the spot by any means, by any stretch of the imagination. Just want to hear about his thoughts, his views, his experiences. One thing amazing about Jack is during the Ottawa trucker convoy, and this is why I thought to reach out to him. He was, as I remember, was going to Ottawa every weekend or pretty much every weekend, and he was providing live streams. And of course, he had his boots on the ground perspective as to what was going on during that Ottawa convoy protest. And of course, we all know the way the media framed it and the way that our government officials framed it and talked about it as if it was some kind of illegal occupation dominated by um, racist, misogynist, fringe type people. And I think most have woken up to the fact that the reporting on it was gross, gross. We were also told at the time that it was foreign players they raised somewhere in the neighborhood, organizers raised something like $10 million. And we were told that that was coming from American or Russian groups, that it was foreign players trying to destabilize our, wonderful nation of Canada. And we later found out, they were forced to admit that no, these were just ordinary Canadians kicking in 5, 10, 50, 100, a couple $100 because they recognized they were inspired by that trucker convoy, and they wanted to push back in any way they could against the soul crushing mandates that the government was forcing onto everyone. And I've said it here many times, God bless the truckers. uh, Laura Floyd has shown up also with the heart and the cross. God love you guys. um, And then I have Danny also writing that he also owns The Great Reset by Schwab. Very scary, yet reads like stereo instructions of years past. I have not read the book. Wouldn't mind getting my hands on a copy, but at the same time, I don't want to enrich anyone like Klaus Schwab by contributing to the royalties they receive. Kind of puts you between a rock and a hard place. You want to know, I think there's enough out there on their on the WEF website and through various interviews done by Klaus Schwab and Yuval Noah Harari, kind of his top right hand man. Danny will send me his copy. Uh, that would be, we'll talk by email. That may be doable. Because, like I say, I wouldn't mind reading it. You will own nothing and you will be happy. We will own own everything, and we will be very exceedingly happy. And we'll keep telling you you are happy. We will program you to be happy. So that's Jack. As I say, that conversation is slated to take place tomorrow afternoon. It's not going to be live. We'll record it. Hopefully, everything goes well, and Jack gives me the thumbs up. If he doesn't, I'm not going to post it. But I'm praying it goes well, and I'm confident that it will. Yeah, and then you will eat the bugs. And it's interesting with RFK Jr. now is tweeting, or are they calling it Xing now that it's Twitter's been changed to X? Well, he's been tweeting about what you need to do to get healthy in terms of diet. And one of the things I believe it says is to eat red meat. There's something called the carnivore diet that I know nothing about. I know nothing about any of these diets. Uh, I just know that for the longest time, we were told there were, I guess it was back in the late 70s, 80s, when don't eat eggs, cholesterol. We've discovered that eggs have this thing we just discovered called cholesterol, and you're going to die if you eat eggs. And then they came out and said, okay, we found out there's good cholesterol and bad cholesterol. We don't really understand cholesterol and what it does, but don't eat meat. Don't eat meat. If you want to see something, a funny video put out by, I don't know, College Humor or some other group, and it's called Time Travel Dietitian. Just type Time Travel Dietitian into YouTube here, and you can watch a very, very funny video. Uh, and Laura's break is over, so she'll catch the rest of this on replay. Thanks for jumping on and for chiming in. Always appreciate the engagement. I see there are a number of people watching. Join Danny in filling it up. Eat Me is here. Life is going to kill you anyways. As my late great father used to say, nobody gets out of here alive. We all have an appointment. We all have an appointment. Consciousness, I can't prove this, but consciousness does not end. Uh, there is a reckoning to be had. And we're all going to come to the end and recognize that we have fallen far short, very far short. Anyway, the second guest is someone who I've had on the channel once before in a pre-recorded format. We did it on Dr. George Antonios, who my pastor friend from Montreal, and he is very insistent. He wants to do it live, and he wants it on my channel. So we're going to be using StreamYard, and which is actually a good thing because I'm new to this technology. George is an amazing guy, an absolutely amazing guy. And he was born, I believe, born in Lebanon and raised there. He only laterally emigrated to Canada. He was slated to go to Harvard. Incredibly intelligent guy. And we're going to be talking about the Middle East in general and about Israel specifically. And George is a wealth of information. He speaks numerous languages. He speaks English, French, and Arabic. He has read the Quran and can read it in the original Arabic, and he can walk through how the Islamic mindset and where the history and things that I can just barely touch on a lot. And I invite you. I don't know when that is going to go off. We're aiming to do it this week in the evening sometime. But George is a very busy guy. He has his own channel, Counsel and Might. That's COUNSEL and symbol MIGHT. Counsel and Might. I invite you to listen to it. And Danny is saying, I have wanted to see him. Maybe this will help me choose his church for in-person services, worship. George is incredible, very, very intellectual, but filled with the spirit. When we met in person, you feel it. You can feel I think Christians have often a radar for one another. And you just have a feeling when you know that you're around a brother or sister in Christ. And George definitely has that. So very much looking forward to those two. And um, Danny is saying, I need all caps, a good preacher. We all need a good preacher. We all need a good guide. There's the story in Acts about the eunuch who is reading it through the book of Isaiah. And and I'm trying to remember the name of the apostle with whom he interacted. If it was Stephen, I don't remember the name of the apostle, but he met up with an apostle. The apostle saw him reading Isaiah, and the apostle asked this Ethiopian eunuch, do you understand what you're reading? And the eunuch replied, how am I to know if no one is to guide me? Is this man, Isaiah, what I'm reading, is he talking about himself or someone else? You know, Isaiah's passage about the suffering servant being led to the slaughter as an atonement for the sins of all. And so Stephen, I think it is Stephen, I may have the name wrong, guides him through. And then the eunuch says, what is to prevent me here's some water. What is to prevent me from being baptized? And so they went down into the water, And when the eunuch came up out of the water, the apostle was no longer there. Great story from the book of Acts. Interestingly, for though, thank you. Danny is telling me it's the apostle Philip. Yeah, I can't keep everything crammed in there. What did I say? Did I say Philip or did no? I said I did. I say Philip? I can't remember if I said Philip or not now. Gosh, talk about my memory going. But at any rate, um, having a good guide is very important, and you have to be discerning. It's difficult times we're navigating right now. So, at any rate, George should be here later this week. Jack is tomorrow. If everything goes well, hopefully, I would get it uploaded tomorrow afternoon, evening sometime. And I like this idea of talk. You've got all these talking heads over the internet. You have 1,000,001 YouTube channels, guys such as myself trying to kind of elbow our way into this crowded social media space. And you have certain voices that are megaphones. And obviously, the biggest of all is probably Joe Rogan. But then there's this PBD and um, Rubin, David Rubin, Ben Shapiro, Jordan Peterson. You have these massive names, and they are so huge. And a lot of times, a lot of people are kind of like, well, wait a minute, what's their game? Are they, the question often comes up, are they controlled opposition? Are they part of the machinery? And given the size of their audiences and their production values, and these individuals are often industries unto themselves. I don't think that's an unreasonable question to ask. And I think just talking to individuals such as myself, a basic Joe nobody, as I said, trying to elbow my way into this crowded social media space. George, likewise, uh, you know, preacher from Montreal, but grew up in Lebanon and understands the Middle Eastern mindset, understands the Islamic worldview, and so I think this will be good. And they're not massive names, but I often wonder what if probably will never happen, but if it did, if my station was to grow significantly, if I was to garner a substantial number of followers. I have 1,100 or so now, but what if that had got up to, millions like these other guys? Could an individual such as myself do that organically and still maintain, would then the machine try and co-opt me? It's something I wonder about. And if the machine did co-opt me, then would I ever admit it? Would I say, listen, I've gone over to the dark side now? Obviously not. That's why I say it pays, you have to be incredibly discerning in this world. Talking to guys like Jack and George, I think that concern is mitigated. I'm not getting the big names, but I'm getting some interesting people to talk to with interesting perspectives. And I invite you to come along. And especially with George, you'll be able to interact with him live. He loves that. He loves the interaction like I do. I would have liked to have done it with Jack, but Jack has never done a podcast type thingy before. And one thing he wanted to know, can I do it on my phone? I'm like, yeah, you can do it on your phone. He's like, all right, we'll give it a go, but you're not going to do it live. And I said, no. And I further told him that, you can decide afterwards if you want to air it or not. And I think it'll go well. And the only other thing I really wanted to talk about tonight is what happened in Toronto at Toronto Pearson International Airport this afternoon, 2 or 3 in the afternoon. I think it was sometime around 3 p.m. A Delta uh, aircraft, what they call a regional jet, one of these jets that flies regionally. It's not a long flight, not a long haul carrier. It's not going coast to coast. This was a flight, and I can't remember the name of the aircraft, but I've heard reporting that it is the same aircraft that was involved in the crash over Washington, D.C., the collision with the Black Hawk helicopter that ended up in the Potomac River. I believe this jet that turned over on landing, apparently, there are reports that it was on fire and it flipped. And there are pictures of it. I haven't seen any pictures yet or any video of it, of the actual landing. There's just the after pictures of the plane upside down, and it's landing gear pointing up in the air, and people exiting through the emergency exits. There's one live video of someone, I guess, with their cell phone, someone who exited the aircraft. Miraculous, somewhat. Amazing the fact that 80 individuals, I think that's passenger and crew total, no fatalities. There are two or three, I'm not sure of the number, but there are some critically injured passengers. But the reporting I've seen says nobody has life threatening injuries. So that's a blessing that something as horrendous as this could happen, a plane landing and turning upside down after the landing. And we'll find out what caused it. Was it there's reports that there were heavy winds, but they're reporting it in knots, which I don't really understand. I don't know, was it gusting? I heard someone at work today say that they had heard that gusts were up to 100 kilometers an hour. But still, planes land in these types of conditions all the time. If this type of incident was related specifically and only to the conditions, you would think that we have heard of other instances like this, if not at Toronto Pearson, at what do they call the airport in Montreal, Danny? Pierre Elliott Trudeau or Mirabel or Jean, God, I can't even remember the name of the airport, and I flew out of it a few times. Uh, Jean Lesage, was that the name of the airport in Quebec City? Or Calgary or Edmonton or Winnipeg or countless airports across Canada. But this is now 4 crashes within probably a 10, 12-day window. Thank you, Dorval. I've never flown out of Montreal. I've never been to that airport. I've been to the airport in Quebec City many times, Toronto International Airport many times, LaGuardia and JFK a couple times, O'Hare, San Diego, San Francisco. I've been to a few airports, but I've never flown out of Montreal. At any rate, we'll see what happens. But I guess it's within the last 10 or 12 days where we had the Washington, DC passenger aircraft, regional jet carrier that crashed into the Potomac after hitting a Black Hawk, after colliding with a Black Hawk helicopter. That was one. Then we had the Philadelphia, the Medevac Lear jet that I still don't know if they've come out with the story on that, if they've done the analysis on the flight data recorder and the black box, which amazingly, I couldn't believe that they recovered the black box. I mean, everyone's by now has seen the video of that jet coming down like a rocket, like a missile, and then this massive fireball. And yet, regardless of that massive explosion, they still were able to recover the black box, which makes me think. And I ask, well, why did they not recover the black box on any of the 4 aircraft from 9/11 when 2 crashed into the Twin Towers, one into the Pentagon building, and another one just a big fiery hole, charred hole in a field somewhere in Pennsylvania. No black boxes, no flight data recorders ever recovered in those. But this Lear jet built in the 1980s, it's one of those things that makes you go, really? Uh, and so we've had those two. Then there was the more recent flight that crashed I think it was on sea ice somewhere near Nome, Alaska, killing all 10 people aboard. Is something happening right now? Is there some nefarious players involved? We're living in a world of AI. We've got all kinds of speculation going through in my own mind as to what degree are China and the U.S. Heading toward a showdown. The new kid on the block, China, seeking to knock off the world's dominant player, the world's leading economic and military superpower is still the United States of America. However, China is very much on the rise, and I think it's sometime in the next 10 or 15 years that China is projected to surpass the United States in terms of being the world's number one economy. And they are building up their military like nobody's business. And with a population of 1.5 billion, what am I saying, million, 1.5 billion or more, that certainly would mean they could have a lot more soldiers than the United States and NATO combined. Uh, Danny got bounced out of the chat and was wondering what Dorval was in reference to. I was asking the name of the airport in Montreal. Couldn't remember. I knew there was Mirabel, and I knew there was another one. I couldn't remember Dorval. Montreal has two airports. Toronto only has one, really. Like one. There's Buttonville, which is small, very small. Whereas in Montreal, I forget which one. I think Dorval is the international airport, is it not? Dorval's the main one, and Mirabel is for small, more regional type activity, like in New York City. You have JFK, that's the big one for international flights, and LaGuardia is more national, more regional. Anyway, that is all I really wanted to talk about tomorrow. I'm gonna get a good night's sleep tonight so I can have a good conversation tomorrow with Jack, and I'll invite you to watch that. Um, Jack will be totally new to this YouTube space, but we'll be definitely talking about his experience going down to Ottawa against the backdrop of the Canadian flag now is back in favor. During the Ottawa convoy protest, the CBCs of the world we're almost treating the Canadian flag as if it was a radical symbol, something to be afraid of. And now they're telling everyone to wrap themselves in it. And the obedient masses are doing whatever their corporate media masters tell them to do. And now everyone's all bleeding maple syrup and only wanting to buy Canadian. And I've already expressed my thoughts on that issue. Uh, okay, Danny's writing that. Okay, that's where I got confused. I did say Pierre Elliott Trudeau um, is the name of Dorval, although Eatme is still calling it Dorval. And Danny's further saying that Mirabel is more for cargo. Very good. And in Toronto, really, there's only Toronto International. Pearson, also AKA Pearson International. So, but four crashes within a short period of time, and I'm just wondering, is there more coming? And I'm wondering, is there a nefarious player behind this in some respect? Goodness knows, in a world with AI, who knows what can be done? And are we heading, this is kind of a constant theme of mine, that we're heading toward an inflection point. I think there are a lot of individuals who like to think that after the trucker convoy and after the government pulled back on the mandates and the Vax Pass and all these draconian measures that, we won the battle. And I don't think we have won the war. Yeah, maybe we won a battle, but I think the forces behind this globalist agenda are they're going to go back at us. In what respect? Is it going to be a rinse and repeat? Are we going to have another health emergency? Is there going to be more war? Is it going to be more environmental fear mongering? Who knows? And my own personal view is they're going to hit us with so many things at the same time that people won't be able to process it. And with the goal of it being to have the citizens of the Western world just say, I'm so scared, save me, government. Take whatever you want from me, just keep me safe. That's where I see things going. And we have to have, and Danny always is great about this. He just wrote, or Jesus is king. If you're going to want to navigate this world and navigate what is coming, there is a storm coming. Health, environment, war, technological AI generated psyops, and goodness knows terror style events. Look at what happened in Munich recently. It's coming at us, and you need to be in the ark, as it was in the days of Noah. You need to be in the ark, and the ark is Jesus Christ. So, um, and he knows that it was PET, Pierre Elliott Trudeau, but it was Dorval before. It's funny. I stick with old names. The Sky Dome is now called, I think it's called Rogers Place or Rogers something, but I still call it the Sky Dome. And the building where the Leafs play and the Raptors is now called Scotiabank Place. But originally, the naming rights were owned by Air Canada, and it was the Air Canada Center, the ACC, and I still call it the ACC. Once you put a name on something like that, it should stay that way. Maple Leaf Gardens was always Maple Leaf Gardens. They never sold naming rights to it. And I don't blame me. Similar, he's still refers to still eat me as eat me, you're female, right? Oh man, this is what I hate about usernames. Getting the right pronouns, not because someone is confused, but because eat me makes life so difficult. But anyway, so look for the upload tomorrow with me and Jack talking about his experience going down um, to the Ottawa convoy. We'll talk about the fires taking place and get his thoughts on that, especially as next firefighter, and also his thoughts on all things WEF and all the rest of it. And then later in the week, George and I will be discussing what's happening now in Israel. I'm sure we will get into scripture. We may even get into the Quran. Who knows? So God bless everyone. And as I said, even with these storms coming, when Noah was building that boat, he knew he was looked after. He knew that God had his protective hand over him. And you too can have that protective hand over you by inviting Jesus Christ into your heart. So I'll end the video the way I always do. May the Lord bless and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you, and may the Lord grant you peace. And as I always like to say, and he will, get into his word, get into relationship, and you'll be ready for what's coming. All right. And we'll see you all later in the week. Tomorrow, hopefully, you can watch me and Jack, and then George. I'll try and give a heads up before it goes out. Talk to you soon. Good night, all. Salut. Salut tout le monde.